sorry.
It only took us 50 years to actually apologize.
Right. There's astronauts that have come out, like Neil Armstrong, and said, like, basically anything that's said about NASA keeping secrets is bullshit, but I will call bullshit on that because I saw on the news when I was a kid that NASA came out and said that aliens didn't exist. How the hell do you know that?
Right.
How you haven't explored the whole universe. You're never going to explore the whole universe. That's impossible to do. I understand that. But you can't come out and say aliens don't exist if you don't know. We just haven't discovered them yet.
Right.
That's as far I believe that it's statistically impossible for there not to be aliens. So basically there are aliens somewhere.
The next time we do a podcast or it's about aliens, I'm totally going to make us the tinfoil hats.
Yeah.
We're going to need them.
There's a podcast called The Tinfoil Hat.
Oh, Lord.
I listened to them. It was one of the podcasts I listened to when I was doing research for this, actually. Yeah, they're actually a really good podcast. Tinfoil Podcast. They don't need a plug either. It's another one that makes $1,000 a month on fucking Patreon.
Someone a little salty or some little saltiness.
little hateration, holleration in this dancery. That was a Mary J. Blige reference.
Yeah, I totally caught that.
Okay. Now, it was just barely, let me double check this, actually. Yeah, it was just barely over 2 years when they decided to launch Apollo 11 after this incident. So it was after this incident with so many problems going on.
Right, where the three of them all just decided to die in an inferno.
Yeah, and they've had problems. We couldn't get a rocket off the ground, really, until, like, the mid-60s.
Yeah, don't you feel like that's a bit early to, successfully, throw something up in the air and actually land on the moon?
Put men inside of a fucking bomb and shoot them into space.
Good luck.
It sounds insane.
Good luck.
Exactly. Good luck, everybody else. Like that episode of Family Guy with the Asian woman driving.
I was totally just
changing lanes.
That. Yep.
Good luck, everybody else. Okay, that's one of the biggest doubts in the story for me. It had such a quick turnaround after Apollo 1 to Apollo 11 where, I know they had 2.5 years to fix stuff, but in the grand scheme of things, 2.5 years doesn't seem like long enough time to fix all that shit, because it even came down to the door latch being fucked up. Now, if the door latch is fucked up, imagine what all this other complicated shit that needs to protect you from the Van Allen belt. We're going to talk about that. That's one of the reasons she's been annoyed with me talking about the Van Allen belt this week. There's plenty of reasons why they needed to do more research on this. I felt like I discovered something really crazy. There were several training jet crashes that happened prior to Apollo 11. This is the most alarming, one of the most alarming things to me is that up until a year before Apollo 11, I think it was about a year and a half before Apollo 11, they were still having training jet crashes. Over the course of, 6 years it looks like, from 1961 to 1967, they had a total of, 7 people die? Just training jet crashes. That's it. There was more deaths. Apollo 1 isn't even included in that.
Apparently,
so
if you work
10.
with NASA, you better take yourself out some life insurance.
Exactly. You better take yourself out life insurance before you even go into fucking space.
Well, even before you even practice train with them, my God.
But we're gonna break them down here a little bit. Halloween, October 31st, 1961. 3 people died when a training jet crashed. On February 28th, 1966, a goose ran into the side of the jet, causing it to crash, somehow killing 1 person.
Goose is cooked, you're done.
Jesus fuck. That goose was... I told you geese are assholes.
That's a serious...
They're assholes.
Event
they will chase you.
Yeah, I know they will.
When I was a little kid, and I was over at my uncle's house, he had pet geese for some reason. He had goats and shit. I'd wake up in the morning, and he'd have a goat standing on the fucking kitchen table looking down at you and shit. That's like, I used to go over there. It was my Uncle Steve. And rest in peace, Steve. Love you. He would have all kinds of animals, and they would roam the house. He loved animals. That's kind of like my whole dad's side of the family, including me. We love animals. he had peg geese, and I wasn't that much bigger than the geese at that point, and I was running, my grandma's house was on the same lot as my Uncle Steve's, and I was running from my grandma's house to my Uncle Steve's house, and these geese chased me and my sister. Like, I was scared to death of these things. No, I always had a good time over there. Yeah, I got chased by geese. Geese are assholes. Here's another reason right here. They fucked up the space program. Fucking geese. Now, October, they're like goats. Goats are assholes too. Okay, October 10th, 1967, one man died in a solo flight during a training exercise aboard a jet. And this is seeming like a pattern. And yet another training jet crash December 8th, 1967, which is a year and a half before Apollo 11. And there was one death, and it happened to be the first black astronaut.
Whoopsie.
That had died. Yeah. And the other two white guys, their ejector seats worked. His malfunctioned. And he didn't get out until it was too late to pull the cord on his parachute and died. And, you know, I don't really get into race stuff because I think a lot of the race is... I know that there's racism out there, and it's fucking terrible. Yeah, as you're calling
people round eye.
That's a joke, though. I'm not sitting there like being prejudiced towards people. It's not malicious. You know, if they called me a gringo or something like that, I won't get offended. I don't give a shit. Exactly. I don't give a shit. I don't use the N-word. That's for damn sure.
Good.
I mean, if I make jokes, that's why I don't call them African American. That's what they said in the article here. It says African American, but I think that's more insulting than the word black. Because there's people that have brown skin that are not from Africa.
Right.
So that's being racist in itself. That's like saying to a person that speaks Spanish, oh, they're Mexican. Right? It's the same fucking thing. Like, I that's why I say black, because I think it's less racist. And of course, everyone remembers September 12th, 1962. Everyone that was alive remembers. We weren't alive, but we even know the speech. I knew the speech before I was even in any kind of history class. And it's the "We Choose to Go to the Moon" speech by JFK, which is going to be our next episode, by the way, so this is rolling pretty good into shit. She mentioned it, too, that last week we had Philadelphia Experiment.
And then we also did one on the Nazis, and... Yep.
We're kind of staying in that area, but the one after that, I think, is going to be more in the 2000s or something. Maybe Casey Anthony, maybe... Chris Benoit is another one I want to do. I don't know. Now, everybody remembers that speech. In that speech, he said we were going to go to the moon before the decade was out. And that gave America so much confidence at that time. After all the failures in the 60s, it's very doubtful that they were going to make the deadline. But magically, they did.
Well, weren't we rushing against Russia? Like, we wanted to show them...
We were Russian against Russia?
Yeah, we wanted to show them...
Russian against the Russians?
We wanted to show them that our dick was bigger than theirs, so we wanted to beat them to the moon.
European, so I'm Russian?
Oh my god.
Yes, so we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the Cold War. NASA's budget was $4 billion in 1969. $4 billion. I did the calculator online, and that equates to approximately... $27.4 billion in today's money.
You should see him talking with his hands, guys. That's great.
I talk with my hands. I do.
Shaking his fist.
I do. I feel like an old man. Get off my lawn! My flappy arms.
Oh my gosh. Because
I'm fat. Like, you guys can't see me, so you can just imagine like a 400-pound piece of shit. That's me.
Oh my god, no.
I'm just dense as fuck.
Yeah, dense as fuck. Right in the head.
Yep. Nothing in America really has that kind of budget. You can think of anything in America right now. You can think of the most important projects in America. Nothing has that budget. The only thing that I actually found that came close, even as a private organization, was Denver Airport.
Oh.
So, Denver Airport was...
Easter egg.
It went, $2 billion over budget or something like that? It was something insane. It could, quadrupled its budget. All right, now the space race. Everybody knows about the space race. I probably don't even really need notes right now because I'm a kind of an historian in my own right, but don't want to toot my own horn, but I did need some notes. The space race was basically the race between the Soviets and the Americans, us, the good guys.
Oh my gosh.
Versus the fucking commies. I still don't like communists. If you're a communist, hey, you can fucking shut this shit off because I will not talk to you. No, I'm just kidding. I don't give a shit what your political view is. That's your own fucking deal. Same thing with religion. I don't give a shit. That's your own fucking deal. As soon as you start telling me how to live my life, that's when I got a problem. The space race was between the United States and the Soviet Union, and it was during the Cold War. The Cold War started right after World War II, and it basically started... The Soviets actually wanted a part of Europe. It was the war against communism. It was the Red Scare. Anything past 1945, instantly our enemy was Russia. So they were our allies in World War II. Stalin was our ally in World War II.
You should see his fatty arm jiggling, you guys.
It's crazy to think about that. Stalin was our ally. And he was a horrible person, too. He was right up there with Hitler. A lot of people don't think that, but he killed more people of his own people than Hitler did. Put that in your fucking pipe and smoke it, fucking hippie. But yeah, so basically this space race was just a contest. It was a pissing match between the US and Soviet Union. Like, who can get to space first? Well, Soviets won that. With Sputnik, they won that. Who can get a living being into space first? They won that. They were winning everything in the space race, and that's why we needed to go to the moon. And that's why JFK said it, because by 1962, the Russians had already been going to space and going to the moon and unmanned shit in the 50s. So we were behind.
Yes.
We were way behind. By the time they made soft landings with the Luna, their surveyor program, basically, if you know what the surveyor is, it was unmanned missions to the moon. Their surveyor program was the Luna program, and they had certain Luna programs that made soft landings before we even made a hard landing, which, again, a hard landing is a crash landing, basically, so we hit the moon, but we didn't really land it, and a soft landing is actually landing it properly.
Imagine if we could have worked together. You know how much further we could have advanced? Yeah.
That's not even...
It's not feasible at this
Exactly.
point.
Well, there were two big forces. When you've got the two top countries in the world,
right,
they're always going to be enemies. They're never going to be on the same side. Honestly, that's never worked in the history of mankind. All right, now for the origins of the conspiracy theories. There's certain places that these conspiracy theories were basically born, and where it started out, a self-published author named Bill Casing in 1976 put out, "We never went to the moon. America's $30 billion swindle." Now, I don't know why it's called the $30 billion swindle, because back then it was $4 billion, and nowadays it's closer to $30 billion, but this is 2018. So, if you're listening to us from the future, hello, future.
Now, if you're listening to us from the East Coast, Happy New Year, because it's already midnight there.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And if you guys can't tell, we did this one in two parts. So I apologize if the audio is like a little bit different, but I feel like
it's worth it because I'm feeling better today. So you guys get the best of Kim.
Yay! All right, now, he was a former naval officer with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English. Right when we start recording, she talks about how she's feeling me up.
You love it.
I'm being sexually harassed over here, and she's drinking. She's getting drunk and sexually harassing me.
I'm not. Hey, you're not telling me no.
Hell no, I'm not. Alright, speaking of no, this guy had no knowledge of rockets or technical writing.
Smooth.
Casing was hired as the senior technical writer in 1956 by Rocketdyne. Didn't know anything about writing, didn't know anything about fucking rockets. Let's make him the senior editor at Rocketdyne.
Sounds like perfect logic to me.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Look at this. Podcat's joining us.
The Podcat? We have the Podcat with us.
He's ready for his interview.
Eli's in the next chair over, just like waiting
Looking
for
over.
his interview. He's just waiting. You guys heard him in the first part of this. He was being a fat ass and knocking shit over. Yes, I'm talking about you. No, you get off the damn table.
Hey.
Get off the table. No. Hey! You want to talk back to me? This company built F-1 engines used for the Saturn V rocket, which is the rocket that was used to send us into space. Basically, every time we sent a man into space,